Secretary of War Pete Hegseth announcing that the U.S. has carried out a major strike inside of Syria. This is just days after we learned of the killings of Sergeant William Howard and Sergeant Edward Tolliver of Iowa, both of Iowa, and their U.S. civilian interpreter, Secretary Hegseth, saying that this is not the beginning of a war. He called it a declaration of vengeance. And joining me now is ABC News senior national policy reporter Ann Flaherty and ABC News national security and defense analyst Mick Mulroy. And Ann, I think this was the big question. It was how was the U.S. going to respond after those attacks against both those sergeants and that U.S. civilian. But what are we learning now?
Yeah, Alex, we had heard the president say that he planned to retaliate. Everyone was watching for some kind of action. And of course, learning just moments ago that the operation is underway. We do expect it to continue for some time. We're told dozens upon dozens of targets in central Syria are being hit. These are weapons storage areas. These are infrastructure belonging to ISIS. Now, I want to remind you that it was just 7 years ago in Trump's first term that he had declared that the U.S. he declared victory against ISIS and had wanted to begin to pull troops out. Now, earlier this spring, he had cut the number of U.S. troops there, but really that attack we saw last Saturday of those 3 American deaths underscoring that this still remains a very, very dangerous area. Alex.
Well, and Mick, in his statement, Secretary Hegseth said today, we hunted and killed our enemies, a lot of them. Any insight as to how the U.S. Gathered its information, disseminated that, and then ultimately carried out what appears to be the start of what could be a series of attacks here?
So, Alex, likely right after the attack that killed these 2 U.S. soldiers and their interpreter, they did an intelligence surge to determine obviously who did it, and he was killed in the attack itself, and then exploit everything they could off of this individual to try to have leads, essentially, that they could retaliate against. And I think what we're seeing tonight is the result of that intelligence surge. They apparently have hit dozens of targets. They're trying to send a message to ISIS, bad idea, don't do it again. The U.S. is there, of course, to ensure the enduring defeat of ISIS, and there's still remaining elements of it. But I think tonight it's going to be significantly depleted, and it sends a message both to ISIS and to the U.S. servicemen and women that are in Syria that they are essentially going to be protected with serious consequences to anybody that should attack them.
Well, and Mick, as Ann pointed out, during the first Trump administration, he announced that he had defeated ISIS or eliminated ISIS. I'm curious, I mean, do we have any assessment as to how ISIS stands in the region, what their capabilities are? Any insights there?
So the defeat of the caliphate was when they were essentially removed from occupying territory, especially population centers. There's still, of course, ISIS in Syria and in parts of Iraq. It's hard, if not impossible, to completely eradicate the philosophy, the warped philosophy that is the Islamic State. But this is why the U.S. has forces there. We work alongside our partners, the Syrian Defense Forces, and now the Syrian government, to ensure that they don't come back and don't reconstitute themselves. It's important to point out, at their height, over 1 million people were under their control. It's not the case now, and that's why this mission is enduring.